How's everybody feeling?
Great.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I love the energy here. This is great. Okay, so we're just going to do a brief introduction, and then we'll get started. But we want this to be very interactive for you. When you hear their backgrounds, you'll be able to see what we're talking about. So it'll be an opportunity for all of us to really connect and just have a nice, intimate discussion. Okay. All right. So let's start off with you, Omar. We'll carry it on down.
My name is Omar Reid. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief People Officer for Harris Health System. Harris Health System is Harris Health, wow. We are already maximizing productivity. We have a talk about maximizing productivity, and we're already demonstrating maximizing productivity. But I want to give a quick example of how we maximize productivity. Sir, excuse me, sir, what is your name?
Simon.
Simon. So Simon, you all saw Simon setting up the seats during the break, right? Simon was setting up the seats during the break so that we would have a place to sit up here. Now Simon was bringing chairs from, Simon, where were you bringing the chairs from? That table right there. Simon was walking chairs all the way from back there, all the way up here. Now, I am an expert at maximizing productivity. Guess where I got a chair from? Here. That table right there. So I'm already showing Simon how to maximize productivity, maximize time, okay? So that's my story, all right?
But you can't tell us who you are, though.
Oh, no, I did. I said I'm the Chief People Officer for Harris Health System.
Okay,
We have about 11,000 employees inside of our organization. We're the safety net health system. We have 2 hospitals, and we have about 30 or so ambulatory sites where we take care of those who are the least, the last, the left out, the looked over, those who are most in need in this county. And that's probably the uninsured, underinsured. That's all of the persons who are our main patient population here in Harris County. And this is my counterpart, Dr. Derek Curtis.
Thank you. And I'm Derek Curtis, the Chief Nursing Officer at LBJ Hospital, which is a part of Harris Health System. I've been with Harris Health System for 6 years, going on 7 years. I'm very excited about the mission there. As Omar stated, we do serve the underserved, and that's a great mission for us. If you look at LBJ and where the LBJ Hospital is located, it's actually on the northeast side of town, close to here, and we serve a community that is underserved. There were a couple of hospitals that closed due to Harvey, and so we end up picking a lot of that volume up. And so we definitely have to maximize productivity, maximize efficiencies, because in a hospital that's only 215 beds, we actually had an EC visits of over 90,000 EC visits. So if you look at that turn, that's a huge turn. And so, but we're proud of that mission. We're proud to be a part of the community, and thank you all for the invite today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Benjamin Foster. I'm the 4th member of the 5 Heartbeats up here on stage. But I am the CEO and founder of Nursify. Nursify is an on-demand staffing application for nurses. Before starting Nursify, I was the Regional Chief Human Resources Officer for HCA Houston Healthcare. Back then, we had 18 hospitals in the Houston market, 2 in Corpus Christi, 1 in McAllen, and 1 in Brownsville, Texas. And I was in that role when Hurricane Harvey hit the Houston market. And back then we had about 10,000 nurses, and then 2,000 other nurses lost their cars, their homes, or both. And that was really the inspiration behind Nursify. It was an absolute pleasure to try and bring in relief nurses when our nurses were locked in the hospitals, and just felt like there was a more efficient way, productive way to do that process, and that was really the background behind Nursify. And some of the stuff I'll share is just what we're hearing and seeing and tracking from a trend standpoint from across the country when it comes to productivity, and maybe some things that are driving a lack in productivity. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, good. Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Jonas. A little bit about me before I tell what I do. I come from a family of 7 sisters. They're all nurses, and I'm the baby of the family. So my running joke I tell people is that I was born into nursing. And then it turned around, I have 2 sets of twin girls, born 6 years apart from each other. So at home, I'm surrounded by all women. And when I think about it now, I said, now I know why my father never said a word at all. But I am the executive dean of the School of Health Professions. Our program is located in Great Falls, Montana. It's a campus-based institution, but all my programs, all the health programs are primarily online. So I get the advantage of working from home, which is in Baltimore, Maryland. I supervise 14 different graduate health programs with responsibility for over 200 plus faculty and staff members. So I'll be speaking as what I do to enhance productivity in the academic arena and primarily in an online environment. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Rollis Fontenot is my name. I founded a company called hrmaximizerus. We're actually called something else back then, but about 12 years ago. And we started out doing some recruiting, and it kind of morphed into now we have a full-on video recruitment, video scaling. We help to help organizations really kind of spotlight what they're doing. And one of the great organizations we had an opportunity to work with is Harris Health. We actually created over 150 videos together. So the great work they're doing there in that system. But it's given me the opportunity to meet a lot of different executives from throughout the country. I also host a live show on LinkedIn. Maybe some of you guys have seen it. Has everybody seen the show? Thursday Roundtable, any live shows? A couple of you. It's a few of you. And actually several of you have been on it. So Omar, Derek's been on it, Benjamin, Chibunna's been on it, Kim's been on it, and Cassandra, she's been on it as well. Anyway, feel free to check us out there. I'm curious, though, in the audience, this will kind of put poll audience. How many of you are in some type of leadership position currently? Okay, we got some. Okay. And then how many are not in it, but you're aspiring to be? Awesome. Okay. All right. So several of you. Okay. So we're going to make sure we cover that. And then how many of you would just want to know ways you can be more productive in your current role? Okay. So that kind of gives you more of a lay of the land of what we have. Okay. So let's start off with when we talk about productivity. Let's start off with ourselves. We kind of start with
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
So what would be your top tip for maximizing productivity? What are some things that you've done that's helped you to maximize your productivity? Because that may help someone in the audience.
So can everybody stand up for me for just a second? Everybody stand up for a second. Okay, everybody stand up. I promise it's gonna be quick, okay? Because this has to do with productivity. So I want everybody to do like this. I want everybody to do like this. All right. Everybody to do like this. All right. You can sit back down. You can sit back down. So the first thing that I will say when we start talking about productivity is that a lot of times we confuse activity with productivity. So all of us just flapping our arms. Did anybody see anybody flying? There was none of us flying. So one of the things that I am very deliberate and intentional on is making sure that I don't confuse activity with productivity. So I understand there are some things that I'm going to do that are going to be activity-based, and it's just to do it. And then there are other things that I'm going to do that I'm going to consider productive. And those things are much more important, deliberate, strategic, and intentional things that I'm going to take on when I'm going to start trying to be productive. So let's make sure if we walk out of this room, we don't confuse activity with productivity. And I'll get back to some more of that as we continue the conversation.
No problem. Can someone be my assistant camera operator for a moment and make sure that it says REC at the bottom left-hand corner?
Simon's gonna do it for us.
The bottom left-hand corner says REC.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you, Simon.
So, Derek, what about you? What are some things that, from a self-productivity standpoint that you feel is a tip you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, two things. One, I like math, so I like to use math equations into how productive I am. And so one of the equations that I came up with maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm trying to coin it, is E4 equals O. E4 equals O. So what is that? That's Engagement are staff that are engaged, staff that are educated, staff that are encouraged, and staff that are empowered. Also equals ownership. So if you have frontline staff that own the process and are owners of their department, of their quality metrics, of however we're moving as an organization, they own that. They help move the productivity within their department, within the organization, whether it's a 3-hospital system or 18 hospital system. Everybody that's owning it help move the change and the progress forward. So that's my formula. E4 equals O. So keep that in mind, and that'll take you a long way. The other part of it.
Someone trying to clap for you this time.
Oh, sorry. And so the other part is, right, so if you want to stay productive, you always have to ask yourself this question. And because you're always going to get drawn into a conversation or conflict, and it's, is this energy that I'm putting forth going to create or make a difference? If it's not going to make a difference, should I invest my energy into it? And if the answer is no, I'm not making a difference, then I don't engage in it. So I'm more productive doing something that's going to drive change and make a difference for either someone in my life or my staff or the organization.
I like that. Okay. How about you?
Yeah, so for me, I am, I do not do well multitasking. And so my number one thing is I stay laser locked in the moment. I don't know if that's necessarily always the right thing, but I am so laser focused on my one single task that helps me be more efficient in the use of that time and space at that moment. The other thing is I am a bit over the top with agenda creations. And if I schedule a meeting, can we get it done in 30 minutes? And the more that I can put into an agenda and an objective, the shorter I can make that time is the second thing that I do. The third thing is when I feel like I'm losing that energy, I'm a kind of high energy guy, I just shut it down, right? Meaning I'm not going to try and push me on. And I've been fortunate to learn that pretty early on in my life. I actually did better on my finals when I would shut it down and get sleep versus trying to do all-nighters. And that's just something that I've learned is stay laser focused, have an agenda with objectives, and when I'm tired, shut it down, right? And then pick it up the next day has been my 3 biggest tips.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, so for me, one of the things that I've learned over these years, and with my role right now, one of the things that I tell you that my life is consumed all with meetings. You could start a day from beginning to end, you're in one meeting after another. Typical, that's in my line of work and in my industry. So one of the things I've learned to do, and I think both complements each other, is that I have a list of priorities. I prioritize for myself what I want to accomplish today. So at any given day or week or month, I have an agenda item or prioritization of things that I'm working on so that I stay focused rather than coming to work and, oh, what do I do today, blah, 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 blah. I already know what is going to consume my energy for that day. And then as nurses, my background is as a nurse, we've always had this, and maybe this is just me, of wanting to do everything. Let me just go ahead and do it. This. No, I've learned that delegation is your best friend. I delegate the low-level stuff. Delegate, so I can focus on the bigger stuff, and you just report back to me. Then I can take it from there. Otherwise, you spend all this energy trying to do everything without accomplishing anything, and then your strategic big initiatives, which are the outcomes that you have to report to your own boss, are not being done. So delegation, and for me, having a list of priorities or agenda item every single day that I'm working on.
Rollis, I just want to follow up on something. Oh, no, go ahead. Let's give a round of applause for sure. But I want to follow up on something because I talked about don't confuse activity with productivity. The second thing that I want to say is talking about what Joseph was talking about. We have 2 assets in life. Whether you think you have a lot of assets or you have a ton, you really have 2 assets in life. And I learned this from a friend of mine a very long time ago. Those 2 assets that you have in life are time and money.
Yes.
Time and money. You have two assets. And the one that you are running out of is what? Time. You're running out of time. So you have to be able to do those things he's talking about, delegate, because there are only 24 hours in a day. Now, I've learned to maximize the 24 hours in a day because my day generally starts around 4 a.m. and ends around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So I can function on very little sleep. But when you boil it down, you only have either time or money. And how you utilize that time is absolutely a key to success for anybody inside of this room.
Yeah, absolutely. And time, unlike money, you touched on this. You cannot buy. You don't care how much money you have. You cannot buy time. You can't get it back. But I can lose money. I can get that back, but I can't lose time and get it back. So that's a great point. All right. So I know we've covered probably something that's maybe resonated with you as we talk. Any thoughts that come to your mind that maybe it's a comment that kind of piggybacks on what we just said, or perhaps a question before we move on to the next thing? Don't be shy. Here we go. Go ahead and stand up for us, please. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Trina Mitchell. I'm from Louisiana. I live here in Houston.
Welcome.
My question is just, Derek,
Yes.
can you repeat the 4 E's that you mentioned?
Yes. So engage.
Uh-huh.
So engage or engagement, encouragement, education, and education meaning credentials, certifications, continual education and growth as a nurse in your practice. And then the last one is empowerment, empowering staff to speak up and be a part of the change.
Thank you.
That's huge in nursing right now. Especially.
Yes, absolutely right.
There's a hand.
Another hand up? Go ahead, right. Please. What's your name?
I had a question. This is the man in the middle here.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, and then the man in the middle. Sorry. When it comes to delegation, how do you manage that when you maybe short on people to delegate those things to? Like you might have the staff, or willingness to.
Okay, that's me, right? Well, luckily for me, with the people or my direct reports, I've worked with them, or I work with them, so I know their capabilities and what they can. And that's the part of the process. You need to know who you have and what they can do. Now, if it's something where they can't, I do the training, or at least I coach them, or I tell them what I will expect. Give them that these are my expectations and let them go do it. Then I manage that process to say, like frequent checking, to say that, okay, are you on the right track and all that. Maybe it's meeting with them once a week or something, just to check up and see, and if everything is going well, again, it comes back to that empowerment, so that they are being empowered without me standing on top of them like a taskmaster. Then they get scared or this. So that's how I know that. But I generally know the skill sets of the people that I have, so I know what I can or can't delegate. And if it's something that I just don't have or they are not comfortable with, then I'll own that process until I make sure that it can be done.
And so, part of that also is, and it goes along with it, it's called, get the term correct, propositional value of your staff and matching that to the organizational goals, right? So what does my employees bring to the table and what do they want to bring to the table? What are their skill sets? And then matching that to where the organization want to go or where we want to achieve. So if I'm great at being a people person, rather than put that person in a situation where, let's say, they're just focused on EVS and cleaning the hospital, but they're really good at talking to people and recruitment. Pull them over to the HR side. Give them an opportunity to help recruit because they like to be in front of people. You will watch them flourish. You will watch them grow. A lot of times we just put everybody in a bubble rather than focus on their potential talents. And then you can delegate. So once you know who your staff are and what their talents are, delegate, and watch them grow. The hardest part for me as a leader is to sit back and listen and watch my team grow. But if you do that, we at Harris Health have been really focused on succession planning, right? And how do you bring the next person up? That's how you do it. Just turn it over. They may make mistakes. It may not be the way I see it or the way I would do it, but that's okay. As long as we're moving forward and getting the job accomplished, you delegate and watch your team grow.
Okay, my man here, Dr. Chibunna, go ahead.
I'm Dr. Chibu, everybody knows me. How do you, when talk about maximizing productivity, how do you deal with the issue of trust in your team and overworking the people that you think they are productive? For example, Omar, you saw that Simon helped get the check, and he wanted somebody else to help him here, and you said, oh, Simon, because you know that Simon you didn't want somebody else to do it because you know that he's perfect. So in our organization, how do you deal with the issue of trust? Who we trust and who we give tasks, and also who will give job, who will overwork? And another thing, the third one is institutional bias, because that person doesn't look like you. That means that he cannot perform well, or that that lady didn't look like you, or you have already tagged that person as someone that cannot overperform or something. So how do you deal with trust, overworking some people, and institutional bias? Thank you.
Benjamin, I'll let you go.
Well, as a leader, I've always personally adopted this philosophy and try to encourage the folks that reported to me adopt this philosophy is trust first until you're let down, right? And then with that trust, it's kind of trust but verify, right? So go into it trusting that people can get done and accomplish, and trust the process that you use to bring them onto the team. Trust all the folks that they're interacting with on that. And back to the point of kind of leveraging strengths is looking for the strengths in the team to try to to look at all aspects to delegate and try to really not put people into a bubble, right, as much as you can to allow the maximum flexibility. That would be on the bias piece is trust everyone, but then also try to give folks as many tasks as you possibly can, right, particularly if they're interested in something and can leverage one of their strengths.
So I'll say this, first, foremost, and foundationally, all relationships are built on trust. Successful relationships are built on trust. First, foremost, and foundationally, they're built on trust. If there is no trust, there's going to be a lack of opportunity for success. Now, what I will tell you is that my leadership philosophy is I'm a very trusting person until you show me I can't trust you anymore. I go into each and every relationship with a high level of trust. The people I bring onto my team, I trust them to do the jobs that I've hired them for. That's the frontline people. That ain't just the people who work directly for me. That's the frontline folks. So, but to the point is we have to make sure that we are empowering people. We have to make sure that we are training people. We have to make sure that those things are important and are going on inside of our organization. So I start off with a high level of trust. I tell people all the time, I am genetically predisposed to trust folks. It has been my experience in my life that the more trust I put into people, the more they live up to the trust. The more trust I put into them, the more they live up to the trust. Now, I'd be lying if I say people didn't break the trust. However, that is not the reality that I claim every single day. And the reality that I see most often is I can trust folks, and even when they let me down, it is how do we get back together and form that relationship to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I would add to when you delegate, it's not abdication, right? When you abdicate, you just give it over and just throw them out to the rules, sink or swim. When you delegate, you want to provide resources. You said training and stuff. So, and don't confuse experience with strength, right? Maybe they've never had the opportunity to do whatever that job you want them to do. But if you see that they have some core principles, like what Derek mentioned about if they're good with people, that's something you say, okay, you know what? They don't have any training as a professional, but they're good with people. They don't have the experience, but we can provide some training. What training can we send this person to? Or is there someone in the organization I can have mentor this person? So I think with delegation, you also want to have the training aspect, providing resources, and help them flourish. Don't put them out there to fail.
But I think, Rollis, you said something that's important too, because I want to make sure everybody in this room knows HR ain't easy, so don't just be sending folks over to HR. Oh, we just gonna send them over there because they're good with people. All right, but we appreciate that, but we like good people. You gotta be a people's person to work in HR, to be successful there. But certainly, training folks, whatever that responsibility is extremely important if you want them to be successful. And you want to maximize, so we're talking about productivity, but we're also talking about how do we maximize the potential of those that are around us and surround us. And so Dr. Joseph talked about how he's doing that by making sure that he's training, putting processes in place, and that's going to make you more successful if you have processes in place to maximize the potential of those that are surrounding you. I like to say, and I'll turn it over to you. I like to say that my job is a business optimizer, people maximizer. Business optimization. How do I do that? I work in a system that doesn't have a lot of money, but also how do we maximize those who are inside of our organization?
So just to add to what you're saying, but looking at it from the other side, for those who of you might not know, I'm a registered nurse. That's my field of training. And I came up the ranks from a nursing assistant, LPN, BSN, everything to where I am now. And many times looking back at my journey, there have been times where I got fired from a job and nobody even told me what I did. So I'll be living like, okay, what did I do wrong? So I can fix it the next time. And even when I came into management or supervisory level, I never had any mentors. I made several mistakes that it wasn't until after I got my doctorate, I said, you know what, I keep making all these mistakes. It's about time I get me a mentor so I can prevent that. So I vowed that I would, from all the lessons that I was never taught, I'll be a very different kind of leader so that I can teach my folks. That's why when I talk about that training piece and all that, I call my staff in. Before I delegate to you, let me train you, let me supervise you, let me not micromanage, let me input that trust to you, and then just report back to me as long as things are going fine, and that's how my staff has flourished. So because of those things that I lacked or never got, it made me to be very aware that I have to be conscious and take those steps to not get my own staff back into the same pitfalls that I was a victim of. And I always make sure that that training piece, sometimes, especially with many of the corporate environment, it's seen as one-sided, where everything is so punitive. When they call you into HR, oh my God, they're going to fire me. It's so punitive. I'm like, where is the development? Where is the coaching? So I see my role as being that, creating that environment where we can all succeed. If you succeed, I succeed too, the organization succeeds. So I think that's the other part to, even when we're delegating, make sure that that person has the skills, the knowledge and ability to do that, and then you trust them to go do it and don't micromanage them.
I'm also saying Les Brown when he says it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. So if you got that mentor or that sponsor that's helping you, that's awesome. How many would like to know more about mentorship or sponsorship for these folks? Is that an odd item for you? Okay. Let me address this question here and then we'll get into that. Go ahead.
Well, no, he had a question first in the pink tie. And
On the pink tie, okay. Pink tie and then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Vitalis Sam from Dallas. I really appreciate the very great news of productivity. My question is, in regards to uncertainty, we live in a very uncertain time, and how does that play into productivity? And I want to add some flesh to your thinking about productivity. It's not just about productivity, but it's about the outcome, right? And we talk about trust, right? Trust is about integrity, it's about adding value. Human trust is a very abused word in our business. We see that every day. And we will find those components of trust that we can really learn to incorporate in our everyday activity so that we can gain the trust of people and others in terms of words, in terms of behavior. But I really want to focus on that point, the uncertainty that we're living in right now, and how does that play into productivity. Then just one last thing. I know we've had listen to a lot of people about time and the value of our lives and all those things that we're experiencing now. And you did mention that we have two very important assets in life: time. Sometimes I believe that time is not gifted. Time is not permanently gifted to us. It's a road. Money itself is not permanently gifted. It's a road. And we live in an era where we have to be very conscious of this happening. So, how does that play into productivity?
Let me talk about the uncertainty point and how I handle that. For one thing, I plan, looking at the scenario, just plan, make the best laid plans. But that doesn't mean that that scenario will happen. And if it doesn't happen, good and fine. I deal with it if and when the alternative happens. Because you can do all the planning, strategic plan and all that, but that situation might never happen. And if the alternative happens, okay, we'll deal with it then. Because you can't go around just worrying, oh my God, this. Then it takes away your ability to focus. I have one example where a team, or I guess a teammate of mine, was going to school, and they told me that, oh, when she finishes the nursing school, gets her rank, she's going to leave. I said, well, you know what? We'll plan for having someone, somebody to step in. But until I get a resignation or notice that she's leaving, I'm not going to worry about it today. So I'm not going to worry myself with sleepless nights when it has not happened. Yes. So I only deal with stuff as they happen. Then I have plans just in case, right? And then life goes on. So that's how I deal with uncertainty, because I could worry that, well, I'm going to lose my job, and then I never lose it. Yes, you can worry about a million things, but unless it happens, then we'll deal with it. So just make some backup plans just to be safe, and then deal with it whenever it happens.
So I like Dr. Curtis because LBJ has the busiest level 3. Why don't you tell me?
Yeah, so LBJ Hospital, 215 beds. So, 215 beds. We were a platform with 325 beds. We had some challenges with some water leaks and some situations that occurred throughout the hospital, so we had to reduce our bed count to 215. And so when you think about that platform, that's almost 100 plus beds you're down, but the volume never stopped. And so you're in a community that needs that service, and they're not aware that you've closed your beds or you've shut beds down or you've decreased your size, so they continue to come. So every day we're seeing anywhere from 250 to 275 patients through the emergency room. Again, that averages out to about almost 90,000 EC visits. If you're admitting 35% of those patients that come every day, that leaves you about 25 to 30 patients that are holding in your EC every day waiting on the bed. So we have to figure out how we're going to move those patients in, put them into a bed, pull patients out. So every day is uncertain, and we don't know what's going to happen. I'll tell you that when we had the water event, I was actually on vacation, and I got the call that one of our pipe burst in the ceiling. That's an unexpected event, right? So how do you manage that and you're out of town? It goes back to what we talked about was trust, right? One, trust. Two is it's teamwork in an uncertain environment. You have to have teamwork. You have to trust the team that you have on the ground. So we had leaders that lived close to the hospital that mobilized and went in and took care of the situation. We had physicians that mobilized that were already in the hospital and helped move patients in and out of the unsafe environment. So that created that. But part of that goes back to trust is you have to build relationships. If you don't have relationships with individuals, you won't develop that trust. And that goes back to your frontline staff as well. And I tell my leaders all the time, all the way down to my nurse managers, round on your staff. Don't talk about quality. Don't talk about falls. Don't talk about cotties, collapses. Talk about how's your daughter? How's your son? How's your father? How's your mother? If I come to you and I need you to act and respond, it's not because you did something wrong, HR. It's because I trust you, I got something, I need a task from you, I need you to go take care of this, and I know that you can get that done. And so when this situation happened, nurses, and this was hot steam coming down, they went into patient rooms without acting, without thinking, to pull patients out. Some got burned, but that didn't stop them. Doctors came in and took patients out of rooms. Staff from other floors came up and helped move patients out and put them on a unit. So you're a 5-to-1 ratio, but they took 8 patients because they knew that the nurses have to take care of other things. So that's teamwork. It's uncertainty. You don't know what to expect, but when everybody trusts each other, you have a great team, you can move through uncertainty without any issues.
Okay, yes, please.
Oh, that lady behind you, sir.
My name is Dr. Alicia Bannis, and I am a disc consultant, also I'm a disc educator. And I appreciate what you said, sir, because you talk about authentic leadership. And I agree, that's what we do in nursing. On the other hand, the flip side, there are nurses who want to be at the forefront, but they won't get there. They don't want to, they have the ability to, but they can't. They will not. So when we look at relational leadership, how do we reach out to nurses who have the potential? They can be influential in our setting, but how do we reach them if they don't want to be at the forefront?
That's it.
Okay. The way I think about this, and I might be kind of biased because I'm coming from an academic standpoint. I'm not a clinician, I don't practice. But I love the nurses who take ownership, who take accountability. Yeah, it's like you don't stay at home and expect that somebody come knock at your door to marry you. You have to put yourself out there. Well, that's another thing. You have to put yourself out there and somebody will find you, right? So my mother used to say this, and I love it. She said, if you take an item, right, and you throw it in water, one of 3 things is going to happen. Some of them will just sink to the bottom, some will float right back to the top, and then some will just kind of like dangle halfway between. So people fall on one of those 3. I love those nurses that just take charge and come in. Now we might need to coach them, we might need to guide them and all that, but you see them in there, and those are the people that when you meet someone or you see, identify them, oh my God, they're eager, and they hook up to you and they're asking questions. I remember many years ago when I was still practicing, working as a nurse, we had someone coming for orientation. And I think someone was supposed to come welcome them, show them around. This young lady just sat there and, after 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I'm like, okay, if nobody had come for you, can't you at least just go ask that I'm supposed to report to this unit? Don't just sit there and don't just sit there and just 4 or 5 hours away. Then, okay, where is this lady? At least report yourself. So I love those nurses who are hungry, who when they latch on, and you see, because again, in healthcare, you're not just going to be at the background. You need to advocate. You need to communicate. You need to be out there. So people will fall into one of those 3 aspects. But when you see someone that actually is wanting to aspire, goes back to aspiring leaders, or when they see somebody who has what they want, they hook up to them. That's what I did when I connected with Chibu. That's what I do when I see someone on LinkedIn, because I still have a lot to learn and I'm still learning. I tell you, I'm the first person today where I look for mentors and I look for people who are way above me, career-wise, experience-wise, and all that, because I want that. And I instill that in with my nurses and with my staff, that find someone, who has that. And we encourage them as leaders. We are pre-programmed to do that. But I'm not going to do it for you if you don't want it for yourself. Now, granted too, there are some people that just want to be in the background, and that's fine for them too. And it's okay. But I'll give you the tools. Like I tell my students that I'll give you the tools to enable you to succeed. I'm only here as a guide. I can't make you do it. You have to want it for yourself. So that's how I approach that.
And if I could, absolutely. And if I can add on to that, particularly in nursing, this is where we need men in healthcare to be more than an ally. Nursing is 90% female. That's fact, right? We know that. And so when we see instances, we need to be more than an ally, even if it means giving something up as a man. Right? And so as the founder, CEO of Nursify, and my CNO, Rama, can attest, the first time we talked, I told her that Nursify needs to be a female-ran organization at some point to make sure that we're staying connected and authentic to the people that we support and serve. As an executive in the healthcare system, it was my obligation to be the people steward. Nursing was our biggest segment, but there was a lot of financial decisions that were made by a lot of men in very small rooms that I had to be willing to be an ally and a voice. And then to carry that on is sometimes we have to, particularly in men, be an ally, more than an ally, to be able to reach out to folks that may not be naturally dispositioned to go after a role, to put their hand up to do something, and or to kind of go to the end of the line, fighting against a male counterpart sometimes, to do the right decision for the nurse and for everyone in the system. And so this is my little plea for all the men in healthcare. We got to be more than allies for our sisters in the healthcare industry.
We got 1 minute. But I want Mr. We're going to be able to tell it.
We ain't gonna meet you in the hallway. We ain't gonna meet you in the hallway, brother.
All right, so I'm not in the healthcare industry. I used to be with fitness business, my wife and I. But I am in the leadership role leading director. I have a lot of staff in multiple states. So my question is, I know the answer, but coming from your perspective, you can shed some light on it. When you have that trust, and then you do your encouragement, your education upon it, and give them that ownership that you mentioned, how often do you micromanage that individual? Because you're giving them a task and a responsibility. Once you start micromanaging those individuals, they might feel overwhelmed and drop the ball. But how do you do it in the healthcare provider industry and other forms that will help others to realize that it's either good for that particular position or industry, or maybe you should go back to them?
Can you pick one? Pick one.
Pick one. Yeah.
Omar?
I'm gonna pick him because he's the one who came out with the
Right.
4 E.
One minute. So 1 minute, I'll do it in 45 seconds. But first I want to acknowledge Benjamin for what he said about helping females progress, right? He doesn't even notice, but my wife became an ACNO at North Cyprus with his help. And so that doesn't go unnoticed. But to your question, it's really about it all goes back to trust, right? It still has to be, the trust factor has to be there. But the second thing is really understanding who you are first, right? So if you understand who you are, then you don't get into a situation where what others do and how they grow and how they achieve, they're not stumped by that. You're not stumped by that, right? Because you understand where you're coming from, you understand where they're coming from, and you have to be able to trust your talent pool. And I don't micromanage at all. I don't believe in micromanage. I don't like to be micromanaged. So I have to trust that they're talented, and I give them that, and I allow them to fail. Because failure, everybody's going to fail. And so you're not punitive because they fail. We come back to the table and we ask questions. So what didn't go well? What could we do better? And then encourage them to go back out and try again. And that way, you get a better product. And then ask them to go out and did you share with your colleague, your peers? Did you reach out to your peers to get information? Or did you try to figure it out on your own? You can't do that. So reach out, connect, but then let them fail. Failure doesn't hurt. All right?
Thank you.
Yeah, they're trying to sweep us off the stage. They got the same man out here.
Thank you guys.
Oh, we got down here?
One, two, three. And let's do it with the group. Let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Everybody yes. Selfie. Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Okay, and look, I guys want you to say hi LinkedIn. Okay, we'll do hi LinkedIn, right? Okay, on the count of 3, 2, 1, we're gonna say hi LinkedIn. 3, 2, 1.
Hi LinkedIn.